He then said to me, "You look as though you've seen a ghost or something. My driving frightens you that much?" I must have nodded or acknowledged him somehow because he smiled and said, "Probably didn't need to be in such an all-fired hurry. Your daddy always said I had a lead foot." He slapped the bed rail again and then said, "Be right back." And then walked away in a very cowboy walk sort of way. I was about to ask Andy what he'd meant earlier, but I didn't get a chance because some guy I didn't know came up and started talking with Andy about football. And before I knew it, Uncle Bob returned and said something to the guy who gave my uncle the finger, and then we were off again. He flipped our uncle off. "And your uncle didn't do something or say something?" I asked. Meek laughed. "It wasn't meant as something mean. It was just a joke between them or something like that." "Oh, okay. I get it then," I told Meek. I didn't get to ask Andy about what he had said because I never got a chance. By the time we were done with everything Uncle Bob wanted to do in town, it was nearly 8 in the morning and people seemed to be coming alive and out in droves. And we'd ended up picking up some stuff Uncle Bob hadn't expected, which filled up the bed of the truck, so Andy and I had to ride up front despite the fact that Uncle Bob thought we smelled worse than before we left the farm. Probably because of that nasty smelling canvas top, I observed. Exactly. Meek agreed. For the rest of the day I was never alone with Andy at all, that is until it was time to go to bed. Up until that night, once we were sent up to his room to sleep, we'd never said so much as a single word to each other. Well, except for the first night when he whispered to me that his parents could hear even a whisper from his room and that I needed to be as quiet as a mouse. I'd been sleeping in a sleeping bag on the floor of his room for those first couple weeks, but as of that very night, I didn't sleep on the floor again for the remainder of my stay. Instead, I slept in Andy's bed with him, without either of us ever saying a single word to one another at night. "So you just got in his bed?" I asked. That first night, I mean the first night after what had happened in the truck, Andy and I had taken separate showers, him first and me after, and when I came into his room he was already in bed. I'd had all day long to think on what we'd done, and what he'd said to me. I'd thought about it all so much that I was scared to death and sick to my stomach. He must have seen it in my eyes or on my face, because when I walked into his room wearing my white and yellow pajamas he simply smiled, held open the covers of his bed and beckoned me with his other hand to climb in with him. I didn't hesitate and leapt under the covers. He then wrapped his arms around me, rolled me up and over him so that I was between him and the wall and snuggled in closely, so closely that I could feel his erection pressing against my bottom through my pajamas. And that is how we went to sleep that first night, but it wasn't the end of our night by any means. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. Meek smiled wickedly at me and said, "Use your imagination." "I don't want to. I want you to tell me." I whined. "Maybe another time. I'm tired and we need to get some sleep. We've got a long way to go again tomorrow," Meek said. I groaned. "Oh, you are nothing but a big tease." Meek put another small limb on the fire and then lowered his head to the ground. "You're really not going to tell me right now?" I begged. "Good night, Alvin," Meek said. "All right. But you're telling me the rest tomorrow," I threatened. "We'll see," he said softly, and could tell by the way his last words came out, he'd succumb to sleep.